In the heart of West Africa, a nation once filled with vibrant culture, and peace was now consumed by chaos and violence. A violent military coup had overthrown the government, and ruthless rebel forces swept across the land like a plague, leaving destruction in their wake. Innocent civilians, men, women, and children were slaughtered mercilessly, and villages were reduced to ashes. Amid this devastation, a small mission deep in the jungle stood as a beacon of hope. Run by Dr. Kendrick, an American doctor who had dedicated her life to helping the people. The mission provided shelter, medical care, and compassion in a land where humanity was fading. But as the rebel forces drew closer, her safety and that of hundreds of villagers was now at grave risk. Far from the chaos, in a secure U.S. naval base, Lieutenant A.K. Waters, a seasoned Navy SEAL team leader, was briefed on a critical mission. The orders were clear: extract Dr. Kendrick and any American personnel immediately. Do not engage or interfere with local conflicts. To Waters, this was just another mission. He had seen the horrors of war countless times and knew that following orders without question was the key to survival. But what he didn't know was that this mission would challenge everything he stood for and change his life forever. Waters and his elite team of Navy SEALs were deployed by helicopter into the dense African jungle, moving silently through the undergrowth. They approached the mission under the cover of darkness. The scene was haunting: children sleeping under makeshift blankets, wounded villagers resting on the bare ground, and the air heavy with fear. Dr. Kendrick, tired but unwavering in her resolve, greeted them, her eyes filled with exhaustion and worry, spoke of the horrors she had witnessed. But when Waters explained the evacuation plan, her response was unexpected. "I can't leave them," she said softly but firmly. "These people will be slaughtered if I go. I won't abandon them." Waters, a man accustomed to following orders, was taken aback. His orders were clear: extract Dr. Kendrick and leave immediately. But as he looked around at the helpless faces of the villagers, he felt a conflict stirring within him. As dawn approached, the SEALs prepared to evacuate Dr. Kendrick, but she stood her ground. "I'll go," she said, her voice steady, "but only if they come with me." Waters faced a moral dilemma he had never encountered before. Following orders meant leaving hundreds of innocent people to die at the hands of the rebels. Defying orders, however, meant risking his career, his team, and possibly his life. For a moment, silence filled the air. Then, after what felt like an eternity, Waters made his decision. "We take them," he said, his voice filled with resolve. His team exchanged uneasy glances, knowing what this decision meant, but none questioned him. Waters' choice had sealed their fate, and now they had to move quickly before the rebels arrived. The journey through the jungle was grueling. Leading hundreds of frightened villagers through unforgiving terrain was no easy task. The SEALs moved cautiously, constantly scanning for threats while guiding the weak and the wounded. The rebels, realizing their targets had escaped, launched a relentless pursuit. The air was thick with tension as Waters and his team worked tirelessly to stay one step ahead. Every rustle of leaves, every distant sound, was a reminder that death was never far behind. Despite their efforts, the group was slowing down. Many of the villagers were too weak to keep moving. Waters, his heart heavy with worry, knew that stopping meant death. "We keep moving," he urged softly. "We don't stop." But the jungle was unforgiving, and the rebels were closing in. As the group neared a clearing, they encountered what appeared to be a friendly local militia. Desperate for assistance, Waters allowed them to provide temporary shelter. But that night, betrayal struck. The so-called allies had alerted the rebels of their location in exchange for promises of power. The rebels attacked under the cover of darkness, and chaos erupted. Bullets tore through the air as Waters and his team fought valiantly to protect the villagers. The jungle echoed with the sounds of gunfire, screams, and the clash of survival. But despite their courage, lives were lost. Chieford Atkins, one of Waters' most loyal and skilled men, was critically wounded during the ambush. As the team fought desperately to hold off the rebels, Red made the ultimate sacrifice, staying behind to buy time for the others to escape. "Get them to the border, no matter what," Red whispered with his last breath. His sacrifice gave Waters and his team the precious moments they needed to escape. But the cost weighed heavily on Waters' soul. As the group pushed forward, they approached the Cameroonian border, their only hope for safety. But the rebels were relentless, launching one final assault just before they could cross to safety. Exhausted, outnumbered, and with limited ammunition, Waters and his men stood between the villagers and certain death. They fought with everything they had, refusing to let the innocent fall into the hands of the enemy. In a last-ditch effort, Waters called for an airstrike on the approaching rebel forces. As explosions lit up the jungle, the villagers crossed the border to safety, but the price had been high. Waters watched as the last of the villagers made it across, his body battered and his spirit heavy with the weight of those they had lost. But they had succeeded. Back at the naval base, Waters stood before his commanding officers, ready to face the consequences of his actions. He had disobeyed direct orders, but he had saved hundreds of innocent lives. Sometimes, doing the right thing means breaking the rules, Waters said quietly. His actions had not gone unnoticed. Though the mission had gone off script, the world had witnessed an act of true heroism. Waters and his team were hailed not as soldiers who followed orders, but as men who had followed their hearts. Though Waters returned home, the memories of that mission stayed with him forever. The faces of the villagers, the sacrifice of his brothers in arms, and the choice that defined his life echoed in his mind. Dr. Kendricks continued her work in Africa, ensuring that the sacrifices made were not in vain. And though the jungle had witnessed tears of pain and loss, it had also witnessed tears of hope, tears that would forever be remembered as a symbol of courage and compassion.